out there in the dairy.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted apple butter, you take a bowl and go out there and dip out some to put on the table for dinner. I mean, for breakfast and stuff. And half of us was here every morning for breakfast.
Mm-hmm. Neighbors.
And he'd come every morning and get the warmer or stove and get him a biscuit.
Yeah. They would. That old dairy though, it had a water trough in it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I mean, it held water good.
Yeah.
And even years after they was gone, you know, it was there. And they was. I never can remember there not being water in there. Even after they died, they quit using it. But we taught when we redone the house, we had we pulled old smokehouse. It sat right down there for years. That was my shop. And they was rocks in that dairy foundation. I don't know how they got them in there.
I don't know either.
I mean, they were huge.
Yeah,
And they was in the wall of that dairy, you know.
Yeah.
And there was no well. Sat right there. You come out the dairy. The well.
Yeah.
And I remember when they'd start washing, Grandma and Mama, or Grandma, I guess, had an old Ringer washing machine.
Yeah.
That son, they'd fire that thing up, washing day. And you better stay out of the way. And they'd always worried to death about you getting your arm stuck in one of them ringers.
Hey, guess what? I did that.
Renee done that one time.
I did
Yeah.
when I was about 3.
I remember when they had that.
Mama had a picture of me with my hand
where
all
you-
bandaged up.
Fell down.
I can remember Mama and them, they'd take them clothes and they'd lay them up on the bottom.
Yeah.
And I reckon everybody had to try it. And they're young and get their arms.
You know that.
Yeah, Lord.
Every year when
that
we
work?
go out cold, I mean that.
Hello. Hey.
Hey.
Hang down there.
Oh, I'm telling you,
You
that
said it.
Boy,
was
you gotta
something
get out.
else down there. Wasn't it?
You'd have to get out and strip cane,
Yeah.
then cut it, then carry it over here to the molasses.
Yeah.
Boy.
Dad said they was back here one time, and said Grandpa said Dad said I wasn't just a boy. Said he was making shakes for the house roof.
Yeah.
And he's back there, and Dad said I was pitching around there, and said grab a little old hatchet, started hacking around on a little old bent up maple or something. What Dad remembered what kind of tree it was. And he said it come up and done a little old thing and then went up like that, sitting right on the edge of one of them branches. Said he went to hack it around on it and said, Dad, Grandpa told him, said, quit chopping on that. Dad said, Grandpa, he said, Dad, said, that's just an old bent up maple or whatever it was, sweet gum or something. It's just an old bent up tree. He said, I got a use for that. Dad said he never did tell him what it was. Said 4 or 5 years later, said they was down there, the old cane mill. And said that old mule was walking the trace around through there, you know. And said that thing come off there and they hooked that mule, said it broke.
Yeah.
He said, Dad unhooked the mule and he told Paul and Dad, said, get that thing off there. Said, I'll be back in a minute. Said he took that mule and went back there and said he cut that tree down. Said he come right, drug it back down here and said took a brace and bit and augered a hole out in it. And said skint the bark on it and said hit sat right perfect on top of that cane mill. Run the trace up there to that mule. Said it was, he said you couldn't have made one no better. It said, Dad said 3 or 4 years later, or earlier, Grandpa told him to leave it alone, you know. Dad's just gonna chop it down. But he had that, picked up, yeah. And I told somebody once, I said, my grandpa was the greatest environmentalist I ever met.
Yeah.
He raised 10 kids to adulthood on 19 acres more or less. And when he left here, the land and the timber and everything was better than it was when he come here.
Yeah.
Now that's an environmentalist.
Yeah.
These coops running around this damn time, they can take a stick about half of it. But
Yeah.
they ain't got no
And I'm
sense.
telling you, when we had that cane down there, boy, They must have been half of the children around here,
Yeah.
down there.
Oh, that's how I got my hand cut right here. See, you still see a scar a little bit right in there.
Yeah.
It's just like a V. Well, you can see it right here. And we were, they were sawing planks like, you know, to put on the, start the fire and everything. And I was holding it for him. It hit a knot.
Yeah.
Andrew and Sonny was pulling it across cut. It hit a knot, jumped out and hit me across
Right
there.
there.
You know what Grandma done? She went and poured that full of coal oil,
Yeah.
and wrapped it up, and it never did bother me anymore. And I still got the scar right there. I was probably about 10, maybe.
Let me tell you. I was in a revival week before last in War Creek over.
Across the mountain.
And there's a woman there, and she come up to me and she asked me, she said, Preacher Bradley, said, did you know Holland Bradley? I said, that was my grandpa. She said, Holland Bradley preached a message to my dad.
Well, was it you, Roy? Was it you or somebody was at Walmart, and there was an old woman come in there, and she was from across the mountain, and she asked, I thought it was you. She asked you if you was kin to Holland Bradley,
Yeah.
and he said, yeah, my grandfather. And she said, that man was preaching the service where I got saved.
Yeah,
And I got saved.
said her
Well,
daddy.
he preached everywhere.
Yeah, well, her
Mel-
dad went to Davis Chapel,
Yeah.
and Grandpa preached
Well,
to him and
if he-
baptized him.
If he's going to over Clinch or anywhere that, Dad or some of them take him over.
Yeah, they
He
did
stayed
like,
there
you know,
till-
but me and Mama, I remember him walking across that mountain there,
Yeah.
going over the whole revivals.
Yeah, Dad, he could point out them that low gap right there.
Yeah.
He'd go through, and then he'd go through one right up in there, or something, according to which way he was going. And
You remember that time he walked across there, Grandpa was telling me this. He walked across there and he got to the Clinch River.
Yeah.
And Alp Hurd had an old boat, and he put him in that. I asked
Put
him
him
to
in
get
that
him
boat,
in the
Cameron.
moonshine. He put him in that boat and take him on over across.
Yeah.
well, now wasn't it Carl Epps always took him to vote, didn't he? Didn't he always come by and get him?
I believe he did.
And that's another thing too. Everybody, I don't care who you was in the community, they was a part of the community. Didn't matter what they were.
Yeah.
I know
They
it.
was a part
And
of the
every
community.
stranger went through here was here.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And Dad told me that, said Grandpa'd wait on Carl to come by when he'd go and vote, and Carl would take him to go vote.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Well, that Grandpa don't reckon ever did drive, did he?
mm,
I don't think he ever did.
never
But he
did. Never
But he wanted to go somewhere, he'd have somebody take him.
somebody come get
Or
him.
Okay,
somebody would be there.
One of the young Junior,
Yeah.
Junior.
Yeah, when Junior got up older, Junior's taking.
Let me tell you, Dad said Paul, him and Paul and Naaman, Dad, and there was another one. Paul had just got out of the service, and he'd bought a
You mean Naaman.
Naaman, had just got out of the service. It was 1st August and homecoming time, and
Across the mountain.
Naaman was going to take them to Smoke Mont. So they got going down through there about Newport somewhere, and said, Naaman just kept putting a foot to that old car. Said, Dad said, come off one of them hills I says running about 85 miles an hour. Hobe, or one of them that was with him, looked over and said, he's rolling along pretty good there, ain't he? Dad? He said, wheels is round and made the roads. he was going to North Carolina. He didn't care.
He didn't care where he was going.
That's what Uncle Levi said one time. We were taking him and Grandpa. Of course, Grandpa was always with us. We was taking him and Grandpa, and he said, put the pedal to the metal, and I'm going to see Lily.
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
But I tell you, anywhere we want to go, though, it's somebody said take him.
Yeah. Well,
And they tell him, he said, well, now I need to go to North Carolina or
Yeah.
somewhere like that, or
Well, when they got before they driving, I remember when Dad got a car, he'd take him across the mountain.
Yeah.
When some of them got to where they could drive and had a car.
Well, my
But
back
Lord,
has been
Grandma told me
killing
one
me
time he
lately.
was gone 3 months over there.
Yeah.
And me and her was sitting there on the porch one day, or around here somewhere, and she looked out and she seen him walking down through there.